Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to make floating splines, and in the end of this video I will show you the new nodes which are added to the animation nodes and the extra nodes. So let's get started. For floating spline we are going to use the main node we are going to use is the vector wiggle node, because these vectors has very unique properties. All these vectors of the wiggle node has a timestamp. What I mean is that if I add a 3D viewer node and this is a vector at evolution 0, means at time 0, then create a duplicate of this, also duplicate of this, and make sure that these nodes have same seed, this node seed and also this seed. Let's make this vector green, and now make this evolution 1. So if this evolution is become 1, then this white vector at the position of this green vectors. So means all these vectors has this timestamp. So we going to generate different vectors from this wiggle node for different times, and then use those vectors to offset these vectors from a spline, from a curve, to generate this floating effect or a moving signal effect. To generate multiple this wiggle vectors or vector from the wiggle node, we going to use loop node, and for to offset time we will use this time delay node. So let's add time info node, then add this delay node to generate different times, then delay this time by this index, then connect this to the evolution and make a new output for this loop node is these vectors, and press W to create a invoke sub program for this loop node. I'm going to rename this as wiggle time offset vectors. So add this into a frame. We can now get different this vectors, time offset vectors, by changing these iterations. So now add a spline, this Bezier curve, then we need to sample this curve using this evaluate spline node. Select the curve and press this button to sample this curve uniformly. Now we need this mount, means 50 vectors of this time offset vectors from the wiggle node, and then we going to use this offset vector node, but you can also use this math node to offset these locations of the splines. I'm going to use this offset vector nodes so that we can easily control the effect with this fall off parameter. Connect this to vectors and this to the offset list. Now we're going to make a new spline from these offset points and this spline to a new curve object. Let's make a frame for this. And also we're going to decrease this amplitude. If I hide the original curve, then we have this curve. Now if I run the animations, see, it's like a signal passing through this spline, or you can also call this as floating spline. Okay. So another thing we can do with this time is we can change the speed and number of wiggles or the curves in this for this spline. So to change the speed, we have to change this time. So let's see what happens if I increase this. So high speed multiplied by 0.25, then we have very slow moving this curve. So I call this as flow speed. Okay. Next is if I offset this this delay. If I multiply this delay with the number, then we can change this number of wiggles in this curve. See, let's call this as number of wiggles. And to control these parameters outside this loop, we have to also bring these parameter as input for this loop node. So let's create a generic list. I generally use this generic list to create a space between different to group different inputs of a loop or group. So I group these the seed, speed and wiggle amplitude of this vector wiggle node in a different group, and let's rename this speed as wiggle speed to avoid the confusion. So now we can control this wiggle speed or a flow speed, number of wiggles. Okay, let's make this one and also this is one. Now if I change this seed, we can get different floating splines. So if we make a loop node to change this speed, we can generate multiple splines. So let's disconnect this and also disconnect this, then add a loop node, and we need these vectors. It's called locations. We're going to call this the same. locations. Then we need also a fall off node, then flow speed, number of wiggles, a partition, then wiggle speed and amplitude, and this seed we're going to connect with this index. And also I want to bring this as cyclic as input for, means maybe you have you want to make a cyclic spline. So to set a default setting, press U, then disable this as cyclic options. Otherwise, when you create a new group node, it will automatically by default enable this cyclic options. So by pressing U, then you can set all these settings and then press OK. So let's make a different frame for these, and we have to also bring this spline outside this loop. So create a new spline and connect this. I'm going to call this as Floating Splines, and also I'm going to add a en suffix for this. Actually I adapt this style if there is en in the name of the loop node or group node, means that I made to use for a further, means for the further use. If there is no en in the front of, or a prefix in any loop node or group node, that means that node or that loop node or group node is only part of the node tree. It is not available for other use. So now connect this location to the location and this spline to the spline. Now if I press 1, we have 1 spline, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can control the offset of these splines with this fall off parameter. And if you make this speed as -1, then this signal is flowing from this right to left, otherwise left to right. Then number of wiggles and wiggle speed. Let's change the shape of this curve like it was in my intro. Okay, then hide the curve. Okay, and by controlling this fall off with this object controller fall off, we can create very interesting patterns. Yeah, see, make this exponential and increase this, maybe not exponential, sine to 5, and also increase this, maybe 0.5. If I hide this, we have this floating splines. You can add the wiggles. Okay, so this is our main node network, and this is the network we are going to use for different animations. So now let's add some shading to this and to this these floating splines. Going to add some amount of bevel. Let's first hide this outline. outline and also this shadow and cavity. Then add a smooth Bezier spline node to smooth these splines. And next I'm going to taper them using a curve. Let's add a curve object, name this as taper, select this object and just whatever the shape you want to make this, GY, and scale maybe. Okay, let's hide this curve taper object. Okay, now this is final node tree. Now let's add a quick material to these splines. I'm going to first enable the texture space as a UV space to this shader. Please, if someone know how to make these setting globals, then please let me know. Every time I have to different spaces, these tabs, I have to disable this outline, then go to this and disable these cavity and shadow. Add a new material, and if you enable the node wrangler add-on, then we can add all the textures, means roughness map, color map, or different textures easily. Then select this principal shader node, press add principal setup, go to your this texture, then texture hammer. I use this texture, select all the textures, press principal texture setup. It automatically add all these nodes, so it is very handy. For the time being, I'm going to disconnect this and also the normal map. Let's view texture. I think we have to rotate this texture and also scale this texture. First I'm going to rotate this 90 degree, then probably we have to scale this to, okay, this is fine. And for the emission, I just use this dark values of this color to control the emission. Then add mix shader node, connect this to this and this to the factor, add the emission shader and let's enable the bloom, maybe go to render and enable this maybe cyan. Let's add also the environment texture. Now you have this floating creatures, whatever you want to call this as. Okay, this is it for the floating splines. Now I'll show you the new nodes. The first node is I have added is this set polygon material this material index node, which is, so this node allow you to set a material index per polygon. Means you can set different material index to different polygons for an object. What I mean is this. Suppose this, and just disable this bloom. So it has, let's add one material and then maybe second as this green. Select this object. You can change the material for all the polygons, or we can change the material for individual polygons. Say material 1 to 0 number polygon. So this is the set polygon material index node. And another node which is added to the animation nodes is get linked vertices. Means you want to know what is the vertices linked to a certain vertex. Suppose to this vertex, all these vertices are linked to this vertex, so that you can get with this node also the vertices and edges and amount. In future I'm going to make video tutorials about this nodes, means how you can use this node for different ways. And another is this line mesh node. Now it has two modes, start and end, which is basically which already was there, and this is the new one, point node. It's more like a spline from points, like mesh from points, a mesh line from a point. And this is it. And if you like this tutorial, then please like and subscribe to my channel for more updates. Until next time, happy noding. Bye.